I've been tagged.
Dun, 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 dun. I think we're good. I think we're good.
Do we make it?
We might have.
Yes.
We did it.
We're on the internet. Oh my god, guys. Here we are back. Bad Publicity. I know we did like a Gen Con recap and our thoughts and feelings, but this is it. This is the legit kickoff. This is where things change. So announcements and welcomings. Bad Publicity Netrunner is going to be on Wednesday night, and before everybody kicks off and starts burning our houses down with pitchforks and whatever, it's not because L5R is taking over Thursdays. We are moving to Wednesdays because our new buddy here, John, is joining us, and just Wednesdays work better for him.
Yeah!
Yeah, for me!
And Hollis and I don't really do anything anyway, and we're like, yes, we are free that night.
This is true. This is actually true.
Some other stuff you will notice is that I'm trying to be, again, Bad Publicity is trying to be more interactive all the time, live with our show, because we do it live. So now you can actually see the chat that will populate on screen in our videos. So if you're watching the video version, unfortunately I haven't found a way to populate the chat in the audio version of this, but who knows, maybe someday. We also have some other weird animations. If you see anybody subscribe to our stream or subscribe to our channel, I think there might be some pop-up stuff flying around. I'm still experimenting with it. I don't know. There was originally some animated GIF zombie that ran across the screen, and I didn't know how to change it. And if that happens, I apologize. But we're just thankful that people subscribe. Also, you'll notice that we are having a stream jar for any tipping. I know some people have approached me saying they just do not like Patreon. So if you prefer to give a one-off buck here, one-off finner there, that's the little spot to do it, and that will help somewhere along the line. Anyway, let's dive into it. John, you want to introduce yourself to those people who obviously don't know how famous you are in the Netrunner community, where they can find you, all that stuff, other than here.
Cool.
If you so feel free, you can run down your top 3 achievements, because we know that you've could probably pull out a good chunk of playmats and alt arts and trophies and stuff. So we don't have time to run the whole list, but
I think we probably could, but I won't. My name's John Trevoranis. I'm known as Joseki on both SimHack and on Netrunner DB, and like basically around in the Netrunner community. I'm the current U.S. national champion, which is pretty cool. I got top 16 at Gen Con last year, top 16 at Worlds 2016. So yeah, I've been playing Netrunner for about a year and a half, and basically ever since I started playing, I've been taking it pretty seriously and doing my best. A few decks I've made. I designed Lock Haley, Cold Ones with the help of some other people, and Hate Bear, which is the Worlds deck from last year.
Dun 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 dun.
Hate Bear.
Perfect. So you will see John as a in addition here to the cast with us doing our show, and you might see him jump on every once in a while if you guys have your YouTube alerts on, or if you're a follower on Facebook. I don't know where he's going to do it, but he might start streaming some games here and there. Depends on his schedule. He said that he was interested, but we know how life catches up sometimes, right? So we're not committing to a certain time. If you see a random stream or video go up, yeah, that's how we do things here on Bad Publicity. Hollis, what's going on with you, man? You ready for this this new phase of Netrunner?
I'm really excited. I don't want to be the first to gush because it'll be kind of embarrassing if I do. But in short, I know that a lot of players, casual, competitive, whatever you want to call yourselves, were really, excited that there were going to be some changes. Like, I think people had heard a lot of rumors. There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of denying. There was a lot of confusion. And there was some worry because we had, at Worlds this year, at Gen Con this year, we didn't hear any Netrunner announcements. And then finally, almost all the announcements hit at once. And so everybody's really excited to kind of see what, what's coming. I know there are a few people a little sour about some of these changes, but I think and I hope deep down that when it's all out, when everybody sees what happens, they're a little bit more comfortable with it. They're a little less salty about it. People are more happy. So at least the ones that aren't already happy. Excuse me. It's exciting. It's new stuff, guys. How are you not excited about new stuff? How is that possible? It's new stuff.
You know that. Sorry. For I don't know how long Bad Publicity. Like, how long is Netrunner? When did Netrunner start? 2013 or something like that. So
2012.
Bad Publicity started just at the launch of the Genesis Cycle Pack. We've kept a pretty tight ship for a long time. As soon as I put chat into the video, someone's got to drop a penis in the.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's the internet, man.
Yeah, I know. And just the first time that we broadcasting live chat, boom, someone drops it. So
right,
here we go, fellas. Welcome to the not safe for work video versions. Keep this minimized, and I guess just listen to it. But
it's called raw, Jameson.
Yeah,
that's
raw. Our style. Maybe we have to get like chat moderators and stuff now and all that.
Oh my god,
we're blowing up. We're huge now.
Oh boy.
Or I don't know if this is just all the people that are joining now because John's on.
I think it's what it is. I blame John. John,
is this what you bring?
Yeah, blame me.
Is this what you bring?
Yeah.
I guess this is my tribe.
Have fun.
All right, let's run this down. So what we got here is we're going to talk about the Anarchs. We're going to start at the red alphabetical Anarchs. So what they've done is they're releasing a revised edition of the core set. You do not have to buy a new core set. You just have to have owned all the packs. Probably not all of them, but a good chunk of them as cards are moved in from Genesis and Spin, and the rest are shelved. So let's talk about what's the same, guys. So we have 2 events, a hardware, 2 programs, and a resource. So Demolition Run, Stim Hack, Cyber Feeder, Data Sucker, Mimic, and Ice Carver. Thoughts on what was kept?
In terms of what's kept, I'm actually super happy with the keep list. Just like as an overall thing, I think it's cool that they kept the both the self-damage and the ice lowering sort of identity of Anarch intact. Because those are like I think the 2 things that they do that like basically no other faction ever does. This like you get $9, but you injure yourself permanently, or you like lower the strength of ice with Data Sucker and Ice Carver for your fixed breakers like Mimic, which is also included here. So I'm glad they managed to keep some amount of that intact, despite the fact that the great majority of their cards are completely different. That was like a big worry of mine going in, right? That they would sort of end up in this thing where it's like, I don't even know what Anarch is anymore. Like all their cards are just like liberated accounts and, Spinal Modem. Like, what is that? So I did have some worry that like we'd be stuck with a lot of like reg cards, so to speak, or just sort of like boring cards, quote unquote, and like we wouldn't get that like really robust flavor that I think a lot of people are drawn to Anarch, right? Because of like the virus aspect of them, or like the ice destroying or the self damage, or like these kinds of things. So I'm glad they managed to keep what I think are some of the more iconic cards in the core set.
Hollis?
Oh, I mean, I totally agree. What surprised me, just adding on to what John has said, what surprised me is the cards like Demolition Run and Demolition Run and goodness gracious, I'm looking at the list. What's the name of the card? Cyber Feeder. It surprised me those remained, only because I know that, you know, at least in the competitive environment, I had not seen run very often at all, and I hadn't seen Cyber Feeder run very often at all. And of course, that was largely due to the fact that, you know, the economic efficiency, like for most decks, didn't require a card like Cyber Feeder anymore. We moved past it. We didn't. Demo Run was less popular because we had the tools available to us to access so many cards out of R&D with multi-access. It didn't really add up correctly. It was almost like players would rather sort of kind of turtle up a little bit more, which helps them build economy, and just utilize the tools they already have, like the RDIs, the Maker's Eyes, the indexing, things like that. But I'm happy that they've decided to keep those core cards, because it really feels like, number one, Demo Run is a very Anarch kind of card. And Cyber Feeder is thematically, it really well fits the Anarch suite. I'm not saying I expect to see them included in deck lists going forward, but it feels like they were sort of chosen and kept, if for no other reason, but because they really fit like the theme of Anarch really well, as opposed to being the best mechanically. Because I feel like there's a lot of cards in the core set you can easily say, based on where the game is now, we can remove them because they're just not really playable. The power creep is such that they're not needed. But I don't know. I don't mind it. I'm happy that these stayed. And like John, I agree. Stimhack is like one of the most Anarch cards, right? It's basically it's very Anarch, and I'm happy to see it remained as well.
I guess if they rotated Stimhack out, that would, you know, kill a whole fan community too, right?
Yeah, they can't do that.
LegacyEdition.com.
I was surprised what was kept. I'm glad, but I'm trying to think about, as we go through this rundown. I think all three of us here are going to be talking about it from a competitive standpoint of looking at what's here, like, you know, oh, they took this card out. Why did they take this out? This was never used. Why did they put this in here? Blah, 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 blah. But it's going to be from like the tournament world. I don't really know. I haven't really sat down and thought, like, does this suite make it a better core experience for a casual, like, I'm just going to buy a core set. Oh, what's all this hype over Netrunner? Oh, they're redoing the core. Let me get it. Because I'm not looking at it as oh, they've only got one copy of this and one of this and two of these. And then what does this suite of cards just in that core bubble do for the game? Right? Like, in that experience. So just to put that clear, this is totally from a competitive perspective. Unless you guys have thoughts about the casual core experience in itself. But I'm really glad that Ice Carver remained. I was surprised that Mimic stayed. And I was surprised that Cyber Feeder and Demolition Run stayed. I'm happy that they're there, because I do feel that they are root Anarch cards, like, say, like the basis from, like, you know, they are what is Anarch. But just what they've decided to move out and move in, it just surprises me that they're doing that. Because if I look at what Ice Carver did before, when you had like Mimic, and you also had the Parasites, and you had Yogg. It was just more of a suite competitively, right? Like when that core box came out. So now I'm like, you know, okay, is Data Sucker and Ice Carver and, you know, like Morningstar, again, we'll get to it, is still kept in. But it you know, was that done because they feel that it's going to be competitive, you know, or, you know, like out Corroder? You know, like, they had that suite that was the fixed, right? The, you know, Hollis always referred to it as the fixie set, and now that set is broken up. You know, all those tools that they originally started with, and even Demolition Run. You know, Hollis, you said that it wasn't played competitively, but I feel without Medium, it's not that threat, right? Like you're not playing like a fun, I'm going to demolition run from all this. And we've seen multi-access happen differently now, right? So I don't know if demolition run is just there to appease the casual, or if something is comboing it with it later. So I think I could have taken or leave that, but I mean thematically it works.
Word, I'm with this. I'm with it. I think the reason why I think the reason they even kept Mimic, and well, number one, I think because compared to another card that isn't there anymore, it's pretty mild. But I feel like the reason why they also kept Mimic is that if we look at like the current Anarch breakers that they have for Sentry breakers, so we know that there's Mark Ultra, and is there another one
for Sentry breakers?
Yeah,
out of Anarch, not really.
Yeah, like. I mean, basically,
there might be, but it might not be very good.
Yeah, and like it feels like the Anarch suite it basically does one of two things, right? It either A has a fixed strength, which means you need support to boost it or to get it to match or exceed, or they have the recursion availability. And basically, it seems like even with one of those being gone now, they still very much want to keep that level on as far as like their breaker suite. They want to make it very clear your breaker suite is either you have fixed stuff and you support it with things like Ice Carver, Data Sucker, or you have cards that come in at a bit of a higher cost, but you get the bonus of recursion and they're not the most efficient breakers. So I like having the either or. It's not meant to be like Shaper where it's like, hey, I've got efficiency over here and I've got efficiency breaker over here that I can like.
Alex,
I kind of dig it.
Cujo is still around.
Oh, Cujo. Okay,
Cujo.
Sorry, I kind of forgot the card existed. My bad. I didn't know. Wait, isn't that the 4-cost one that's 0 strength?
It's a dog.
It's a dog, right? Yeah, it's the dog.
Is it 4 cost and 0 strength?
Let's see. Looks like it's 3 to install, 0 strength.
Okay.
It comes with 4 power counters. It's a credit for +1 strength. That's actually not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
actually okay. You just don't really have a lot of ways to you can't like scavenge it like you can in Shaper, right?
No.
You gotta like overwrite it, and it's kind of awkward.
And I will say this: I think that one, this will be like one of those you heard it here first moments. In talking with Boggs in the interviews he did when he first came on, you asked him what element of the game he wanted to experiment with the most, and it was power counters. So maybe something will happen with power counters and Cujo, and we'll see a revised dog suite. Anything else to say about what's kept in Anarch? There was only, this, like I said, this one was the most changed, so
yeah,
there isn't really much that was kept.
Yeah, I think I just love StimHack.
Yeah,
like I think it's like it's like quintessentially Netrunner, right? It's like I'm gonna get super messed up on drugs, and that's gonna give me some like inhuman strength, and I'm gonna like jack into this like server. And like I don't care if I like screw myself up because of it. I'm gonna like take that agenda, right? It's like it's just such a like it just feels like super good to play it, and it's like I feel like it's one of the cards when I first came to Netrunner where I was like, that's cool. I felt like it was really cool.
Do you the last thing I'll say about these cards is, do you guys think what's your opinion on viruses going forward? So like I'm just looking at Cyber Feeder in general, and what that used to do before is you put it out there and you had noise, and you're playing all these viruses, and it would pay for installing these viruses, so you could Anarch didn't need that much money, and you could manipulate their economy like so and so. But with noise out now, and again we'll get into that in a second, do you feel that viruses are going to be as prevalent as it was? Like, do you think Cyber Feeder will still kind of float on the bubble as an
not with the current card pool, right? There's not really anything you'd want to play.
No.
It's sort of like it's a little too inefficient, right? So the thing about StimHack or not StimHack, Cyber Feeder is that it's a little bit like prepaid voice pad, in that like you want to be using it literally every turn. to get that like maximum efficiency out of it. And it just seems that like there aren't like, you can like play a cyber feeder and you can play a cache, right, and install it on a Shahrazad and make 5 from your cache or whatever. Like there are like things like ways you can combo it together, but it kind of feels like there just aren't enough. There isn't enough incentive to install those cheap viruses. Mm-hmm. Like Noise was like that build around, right? It's like you want to play like cache with Cyberfeeder. It's like Noise is your bro, right? Like he rewards you for doing that super hard. And you know, well, I guess we'll see what's in the next cycle as far as viruses go. Like there might be something in there, but as far as like what is in the current card pool, I have a really hard time seeing Cyberfeeder really see any play because there's just not that. There's not that same engine that Noise brought with him.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, I saw one card that was spoiled, it was like the Friday chip. So maybe there's some design space that could happen in viruses that would have just kept Noise like too popular. Like as long as he was around, you were really handicapped at what viruses you could put out because you just always made him better with like a virus. As soon as it came out, you're like, oh, maybe Noise is back. Like this is a good virus.
Yeah.
So that's
there's got to be a little more. Yeah, cool.
Hollis, did you have anything else, or do you want to transition to what was cut? The cuts, man.
The cuts didn't make the team.
Oh no, it breaks my heart. Not really.
Last pick in dodgeball. Here we go.
So to me, I feel like the most impactful thing that was cut. I mean, let's go right into it.
Okay.
Most impactful card cut out of Anarch. I'm gonna just say it. Worm. Like, here's the deal. Like, it's super impactful throughout the lifetime of the game. Worm was. Jay Ding, shout out to him. Just obviously with this card not being included, no one cares. So, no one.
Yeah, I didn't know why Worm needed to be cut. I mean I didn't think, I mean, other than to make space for something else. But like, I was just like, okay. But then I'm always thinking like, you know, like, what was the reason to like pull it out of the game? Like, is it something that is going to combo later? Would it be too powerful? Like, because it wasn't doing anything. They could have just left it, right? Like,
yeah.
Or do you think it makes for a better experience with it gone?
It seems like Worm, the reason you play Worm. So I don't know. I played some like mono core set Netrunner when I very first started learning, which is like a year and a half ago. And in the mono core set Netrunner, I had a Worm in my Noise deck, and I remember being like, "Oh, I don't really want to break with this, but it's like it's an okay like super backup plan if like I can't break like a code gate, right?" Like that's how I remember like the experience of it. So I guess like when you had like Yogg in the core set, in addition to Mimic, maybe Worm made more sense. Or when you had Parasite, right? You could use Worm to like just kill an ice. But it seems like without Parasite or Yogg, its role is like a lot less like clear, like why you'd want to play it.
Right.
Yeah, it was one of those weird cards that I think when it first came out, it was like errated a shitload because nobody understood and everyone played it wrong. They were just using it to like lower ice strength and all that hoopla. But yeah, cut it. It's gone. What? So Hollis, you made a joke, but let's say like, what do you think is the most impactful card that is cut?
I mean, it's almost a tie, but I'm gonna say Parasite. I mean, I'm gonna say Parasite. I think that's pretty damn impactful.
But I mean, talking Parasite without any most wanted list attachments to it, or Parasite as a current rule set.
We had people make top 8 at Gen Con and said, most wanted list be damned, I'm running through Parasite. I mean, the card is super. I mean, I'll put it this way: it directly prevents certain ice from being played at all. Like certain ice that I think is actually decent ice still. You cannot play it. John and Jameson, right? Like, I'm sure you've built decks before where you looked at a piece of ice and said, this isn't bad, but Parasite.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to play this, but
I think Grail gets like the most from Parasite being gone, right? Because Grail is all like super low strength ice. Like you really could never play it because it's just all gonna get eaten alive by Parasite. So it's like, and Grail is like an ice suite that you need it in play. Like it needs to stay rezzed because if it dies, like you have to install a copy from your hand, which is horrible. So, Parasite is a huge impact on deck building because like I think Grail is really good. Like 3 sub ice that's cheap to res. Sign me up, So, yeah, losing Parasite is a really, really big deal. It opens up a lot of stuff. And even stuff that, like, previously was a liability, like Roto Turret. Like, you could never res a Roto Turret, right. in modern Netrunner. Unless you were, like, a combo deck like CI or something. There's just no incentive for you to rely on that ice for more than a turn. But with Parasite gone, there's very little downside to resing a Roto Turret, right? Like, you get the effects that you want, which is, trash a program in the run, and then they can't just like deny your 4 credits by parasiting it. It's just there forever.
Roto back, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Roto Turret's a pretty good piece of ice as far as gear checks go. It's like not that bad. And it's like a lot of this stuff gets overshadowed, right? Because we've been in this environment where it's like, if the ice doesn't have at least 3 strength, you basically can't play it unless it costs 0 or 1 to res.
Yep.
So like you see like vanillas, quandaries, pop-up windows, basically ice that accomplishes something for nothing are all playable. But then the middle range ice where you're spending 4 or 5, to get like something that's pretty good and has like a solid mid-range effect, but dies to Parasite. So... Mm-hmm. You have this like big ice disparity. If you look at most modern Netrunner decks, they're really all in on like tons of 0 and 1 strength ice, or like 3 vanilla and then like DNA trackers and fair children. Right. Like that's like the spectrum you're working with, just because of how warping Parasite is.
Yeah. John, do you have one that stands out to you?
Oh, it's gotta be Yogg.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, since the day I started playing Netrunner, someone broke a piece of ice for 0 credits, and I was disgusted. I was like, how is it even fair? Like, everyone's done it when they're a beginner. You, like, res an Enigma, and they have the Yogg, and they're like, you don't want to do that. Right? Like, your opponent, like, corrects your ice res. Because you, like, res an Enigma. And it's like, I think it's like, it's literally happened to everyone I know that you're just sort of like, at least all the new players I've ever taught Netrunner, it's Yogg, it's like, it just doesn't feel right. It's like, why should I pay for something and then you just get to play a card? And it's like, it's even worse. It's not just like a counter spell or a removal spell in some other card game. It's like, I res it and then it just sits there on the board and I'm like constantly reminded that it does nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like worse than like, it's worse than them parasiting it.
Yeah.
Right? It feels worse. So, like, Yogg gatekeeps so much good ice. Like, just go on, like, Netrunner DB and look at all the 3 strength or lower code gates. There are so many good ones. Fairchild 2.0 is insane. Insane!
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's such a good piece of ice. You can't play it right now because of Yogg, right?
Yep.
So, and it's like, it's crazy. There are so many good code gates, and it's like... Even pop-up window, which is in the core.
5, man.
Yeah, I guess. I
think loaded cost.
Yeah. So it's got some cost up front, but damn if it ain't good, man. Yeah, it's super good. I know. It's warping.
Maybe 2 years ago at Gen Con, I was speaking with, I don't want to reveal the name, so I was speaking with someone who's working with Netrunner or on Netrunner at FFG. And I straight up, sorry?
Did Damon jump in the chat?
Oh, we got a wild Damon.
There's a wild Damon?
A wild Damon has appeared.
Oh, wild Damon has appeared. Oh, wow.
Love you, Damon.
So, hey, Damon. We hope you're doing well, man. So I was speaking with someone at Gen Con, and basically I was like, hey, if you have to choose on a list of existing Anarch cards, which one do you feel like should not have been printed as it is? So which one do you feel like a really big problem in initial design. The first card picked was Yogg. Like, it was number one. It was like that. It was like Yogg. Yogg is number one. Any card that breaks ice for 0 that can effectively invalidate, like that heavily invalidate cards on the corpse side is probably not good. It's probably not good for the game. Even if it was similar to Mimic, right? Like, I don't even think we'd be mad at that. If it was similar to Mimic, have an upfront cost of 5, be 3 strength, 1 to break every code gate sub, you'd be like, okay, this is in the same vein as Mimic. You have to have tools to boost and like, I get it. But 0 is insane. 0 is insane. And then I think what made it worse, the sort of like the sad side about it is that, like, just like John said, there's so many good code gates that are 3 strength or lower, and it was like we kept seeing them get released. And immediately, I don't know if everyone looked at it the same way I did, but I would see a good piece of ice that was 3 and be like, "Oh, this is really never mind, don't care."
Yep, exactly.
It'd be like, "No, it doesn't matter what it does. It's 3. I don't care. It doesn't matter."
So many times on the show, right? And you're doing like reviews of ice, and you're like, "Oh, this effect could be so awesome if I could pop it." Oh, it's a 3 strength. Oh,
yeah. I do feel that Yogg and Parasite, the 2 cards you mentioned, cast the longest shadow over Netrunner in terms of the cards you can play from these cards.
Right.
And I think Medium might be the most, like, objectively powerful card in terms of, like, how it closes out games so efficiently. But you don't ever deck build and go, like, I can't play this because Medium exists, right? Like, it's really strong. Like, Medium's like probably the best R&D win condition in Netrunner up until revised core. But yeah, Yogg and Parasite they affect your deck building so much.
Yeah, I mean, you guys hit on the big ones, and I would echo with exactly those thoughts. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to pick a different one that I'm really, really sad to see go, and that's Deja Vu.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a really nice recursion with a twist for Anarch. I thought it fit really nicely. And you know, truth be told, I've also used it out of faction a couple times on some you know, interesting decks that I've been tinkering with. I just, you know, for 2 cost, I'm getting, you know, a card pulled back and, you know, or 2 viruses, right? So, I mean, I just thought that was really, really cool recursion, and there wasn't a lot of times I would be playing a typical Anarch build and I didn't have Deja Vu in it, because I would have some kind of viruses or something like that you just want to, you know, pepper the corp with. So I'm sad to see Deja Vu go, especially because I believe it was a core concept in recursion. But we'll see how Anarch, I'm sure they'll adjust.
It also it's bittersweet because we know that with, as far as like the regular like programs that we do, I say regular programs, but like, I mean, icebreakers, right? The icebreaker suite that we might see, you know, definitely getting used more now out of Anarch is going to be that recursion suite. So Deja Vu, you know, whereas before I felt like Deja Vu definitely did double work because you had the choice. Get the icebreaker if something, you know, really, really horrible happened, you made a bad call, or get 2 viruses back, right, with good play. And so with there being less of a need for you to actually recur, you know, your icebreakers back, is exclusively for those viruses. And now with Parasite out, the question is like, all right, so what viruses are we grabbing back? It's going to be like what imps and data suckers and other reusable tools like that may go away. I mean, we still have Trope, right, guys? Right?
Yeah. Hey. Trope gets a bad rap. It's pretty good.
Right?
It's worse than what we have, but Trope's okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
I mean, actually,
no, yeah, go ahead, Hollis. I thought you were done there.
Well, building onto that, because the moment I started thinking about Trope, I started thinking about, okay, I'm shuffling cards back, so how do I get them? You know, how do I start drawing them? And that brought me immediately to the fact that Wildside's out. So Wildside is gone. We lost it. It's not here anymore, guys. We're done. That the world of start my turn, you know, gain a click, or, you know, free click, draw 2 is forever is gone now. Yeah. We don't get it anymore.
Well, now we can play Beach Party. That's how I feel. The real star comes out. Beach Party game day. Come on, guys. No, I really don't think So I think Wildside is one of the cards that I don't really feel like should be on this list. I think Wildside got the bad rap for Faust, basically. Like, Wildside took the hit for Faust. Faust, in my opinion, is objectively the best runner card ever printed. That's my personal opinion. Not, but Wildside is cards like Wildside and Laguna Velasco District out of Shaper. Those are cards that demonstrate why Faust is so strong. And they do it in this really subtle way where you're like, oh, it's Wildside. You're just drawing all these cards and then you get to use your Faust, or like then you get to do whatever. But frankly, like, it's kind of hard to keep up with a Wildside if you don't have something like Faust. You don't have that outlet to like spend all these resources that you're gaining with Wildside, right? And that's why I feel like Wildside is such a cool Anarch design. It's a lot like StimHack, right? When you play Wildside in the core set, you put it down and you have committed for the rest of the game to 3 clicks, 2 bonus cards a turn, and you may not be able to keep up with that lifestyle, right? You may not be able to keep going to the Wildside every night at some point, right? It burns you out. So I think that's like that to me, it feels like a super on point Anarch card. I see why it's gone, but I wish Faust was gone instead, I guess. Like, one of the two, because I feel like really it kind of took the bullet, when...
I fully agree there. I think that was very well said. Like, Wildside was typical Anarch playstyle defined, right? You're sacrificing that click hit for something else, and it was just that, for lack of a better term, anarchy going on in the play, right? Like, I remember like playing Anarch with the core set and without all the tools, and it was all about once you turned Wildside on, I was like, there was a point halfway through the game where I was like, I don't want this anymore. I don't.
I know.
I've got the pieces I need. I found them. Turn it off, man.
You don't get to stop going to the Wildside. You join the club when you installed that guy.
All right, so let's just run this list down here. So obviously Noise is gone. That is the ID. Again, I think we touched on some of it before where we said from a design space perspective, they couldn't keep putting out good viruses because it just made Noise too good. I really feel that it was a handcuff. Noise had its run. He was awesome. He was garbage. He was awesome again. But through the whole thing, he was a great, fun ID to play.
Wait, fun for who though? Can you clarify who he was fun? I'm kidding.
It's fun for the Noise player.
Well, I just think fun from an Anarch perspective. He synergized very well, like from back in the day. Okay, like so when as a core set, he synergized with the viruses, and he was a cool mechanic of milling out cards. It was a different win condition that was dramatically different than what the other IDs were offering at the time. As more and more viruses got printed, obviously he got a little out of control as different things came in the game that accelerated Noise's abilities, and the mill conditions, again, a little out of control. But from there, it's his time to sleep, man. He needs to rest.
Are you gonna miss Noise, Hollis, or do you hate this guy?
Well, the thing is, as much as I say good riddance to Noise, because I've been saying it like every post about Noise, I'm saying good riddance. I admittedly had a lot of fun both playing as Noise and playing against it. It's sort of the same scenario that I had with back in the day with I'll say back in the day with NEH Andy, when that was like the most dominant archetype. When it was NEH Andy, I always felt like even though people very much jumped to those archetypes very quickly, that interaction between the two playing each other was a lot of fun, because Andy had that great start. NBN had a lot of free clicks, but on top of that, they could gain 8 credits with sweeps, and so they were like the play between the two of them were very exciting games. I always felt like, and I remember being on the corp side playing against Noise decks and vice versa, where not every game was just a wash. I mean, there were definitely incredibly close games that were a lot of fun while playing as Noise and playing against Noise. I think when I look at it, though, if I have to choose the experience I prefer, though, I would prefer the NEH Andromeda experience versus the Noise and any other Corp experience. Because I felt like that was always I felt like those matches, especially as like NEH and Andromeda, they were very like you fought really, really hard, and everyone had a lot of great potential because there was a lot of great setup involved. And with Noise, I felt like sometimes like just with RNG, and I know RNG exists in every element of the game, the RNG was so heavy and like against me. There wasn't much I could do. I mean, at the point where I don't see Jackson, and you go, you know what? Data Sucker, run. All right, you res a piece of ice. Parasite it. There's another virus. Aesop's go. When we're getting to that point, it's like, okay, come on, like, and then we've had those games. You know, they mill only 2 cards, 2 agendas, and you're like, what is happening? Like, I don't know. I don't have a counterplay to this. Like, you might have just won the game here, and there was nothing I could have even done about it. It's the same as running R&D unprotected twice, the same 2 agendas, right? At some point, you kind of throw your hands up. You're like, well, I mean, that happens. I don't really have a counterplay to this. I didn't have a choice. And that can be a negative play experience. And ultimately, I think that's why I prefer Noise rotate out. I think it was good to have him there. We had some great times. You know, we had a couple beers together. You know, we would eat lunch all the time, you know, just discussing our days. But now we've moved on to bigger and better things. It's time to, you know, part ways. And that's how I feel about Noise. Good riddance, by the way. Good riddance.
I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And ultimately, Noise has a special place in my heart because it was one of the first IDs that I played a lot of. Leela and Noise were the first 2 IDs that I really was like, I'm a Noise player, right? Like for the first for like a 2-month period, I was a Noise guy. And I like top 8'd my first store champ with Noise, right? And I was like, yeah, I love Noise. And I think I love a couple things about it. One is I think Noise actually really teaches you how to play Netrunner well in the modern Noise decks. So when you run R&D with Noise and you see the top card and it's a hedge fund and you notice that they went like install ice on HQ credit. And it's like, oh, no other ID can do something about this. I can play a virus and get rid of this, and then I can go get a fresh access, right? Like that sort of like sequencing and problem solving about the cards you access is really like unique about Noise's playstyle. And I always thought that was really cool. It does suck that like there's the noise factor of like sometimes they mill all your Jacksons or all your agendas, but like the sort of like the average, if you will, of what you get out of playing Noise was in general really exciting gameplay for the Noise player. I mean, it was pretty agonizing for the Corp because they're always like, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna mill. And that kind of stinks, but it also is like high emotion gameplay. It's exciting. Like you could get wrecked, and that makes the match like so much more tense that you could just get like tremendously unlucky and like get wrecked by Noise. So you're always trying to like hedge against that a little bit, and you're like, statistically speaking, he's only going to mill 1 agenda, so I'm going to play to the statistical average. And it's like, I don't know, like the gameplay is like so amorphous with Noise when you're playing against it. And I always really like that. I do think it super sucks though that like 5% of Noise games are just like, he milled 3 agendas in 1. Like, you know, like that's really stupid. Like that shouldn't happen as often, I think. But like in general, I think the like emotional tension of playing with and against Noise was always one of the coolest things about him. And I'll miss him for that. I don't think he should be around if there's no like Jackson, but he's cool, you know?
Yeah.
It's an interesting argument, right? The play style that Noise brings, you know, and it's one of those things where I feel like the game never really got to a state where it was like, I need to include this in my deck to defend against this. I need to include this to defend against this. I need to have multiple copies of something because I need to, worry about if one of them gets milled off or trashed or I lose something to damage. It was like, this is the most efficient deck that I feel, and I'm going to bring it and run it and just, put it through the gauntlet. It was never putting things into combat. Like there was a little bit, someone had if you had a deck of 45 cards, maybe 2 to 3 of them sometimes were changed from like a deck that was posted, and you're like, this is my secret tech. Or you've got like you saw, remember Worlds, the one shattered remains, right? Like just for the sake of it, right? To because of those situations. But you look at that playstyle that Noise had, and it's not like he was winning the huge tournaments, right? Like it's not like he was coming out on top in like nationals or worlds like this late in the game. So it makes me wonder, but I think it was mostly done because it handicapped the design space. And I think they were very, very conscious of what could be printed as a virus because of Noise. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in the testing, didn't make it to print folder because of him. Deja Vu, we already talked about. The next one is the hardware. Grimoire, I think Grimoire makes a lot of sense. If Noise is gone, take Grimoire out. Again, because it's giving that boost to viruses. And I mean, let's be realistic here. It doesn't go in line with what Anarch is doing for consoles. This is a 3-drop 2 mem. I mean, that's ridiculous. Plus a huge in-faction bonus. Grimoire was amazing. There was no reason not to play it.
For a long time.
Yeah, it along with I don't mind saying it along with like the criminal console, right? The first criminal console, Desperado. It was so good that often I think Moz is quite good, but the tempo hit at 6 for what you get versus so something really, really useful at 3 is like, wow, like I don't do I take the tempo hit for this like crazy ability, or do I take just pay 3 for still a pretty darn good, you know what I mean? Like it's so it was a very easy choice, right? Super, super easy. And like you said, when you already have cards like Noise, or it doesn't matter if you have Wizard, it doesn't matter. Any card you throw down, as long as Parasite existed, meant that Parasite got more strength. It was even more powerful. Because now you could straight up say, I got a data circuit counter and Grimoire's out. All right, Parasite is 2 strength. I'll run and it's gone.
Yeah, it really took it really controlled the tempo of that suite, right? Like when you had the data suckers, when you had parasites going and things like that, it was just an acceleration shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll also just say too, like I completely agree with you guys. I have nothing more to add. But Grimoire is Noise's console, and it's not Raina's. So
yeah,
course of experience, man.
Yeah.
Just to throw in that little bit of why it's probably not there is that we're gonna have Raina, not Noise, and Raina doesn't want. Raina doesn't use Grimoire.
No,
Does Raina use
no
Spinal Modem?
Yeah, Spinal Modem. Yeah. So it's like
I'm holding my rant back. So it's there.
Wow. There's a Spinal Modem rant upcoming. I'm excited.
If there was a release of this revised core earlier, I would have said a great loss to the game would have been Corroder, one of the best barrier breakers we've seen in a long time. But I'm glad that it's rotated out just for choice, so people aren't leaning on it like it was.
Clip, you know what I mean? Clip is the new, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would almost prefer. I'm pretty sure I prefer Paperclip to Corroder pretty much every time. Exception being what, like I'm in Shaper and I have the option for clone chips.
Mm-hmm. It's it did its thing. It was the automatic splash out of faction all over the place. Everybody played Corroder. It is worn down. Nothing else to say there. Jin. Jin got pulled up next. Jin was interesting. Again, this is a card that had virus synergy, but you know, it was one of the first kind of cards that was a program that you hosted additional cards on. This hosted non-icebreakers. Jin didn't really see a lot of play. It was interesting. No. It was interesting in faction, but it was like their early search mechanic. You know, like I need that virus, let me go get it, kind of style. But eventually, when there became enough viruses where you didn't need to really search up them, it kind of got shelved.
Yep. I do think Jin is a card that, given the right circumstances, could have been extremely good. Namely, like, if there was a specific virus that enabled a very powerful combo of some kind, Jin would have been played.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not luck, it's not unluck or anything. You know, it's not like design space or anything weird like that. It's whenever you have a card that tutors a specific subtype of another card, you have to be very careful. Because, you know, if you printed a virus that's like, when you install it, put 2 viruses on a card, or like, you know, something weird like that. And then you start tutoring up a ton of these, and then you're making 40 card medium runs all of a sudden because you're comboing out with your Jin. Like, these kinds of things like can happen, right? Like, you end up with a lot of these interlocking effects, and they're all tied to this subtype. And then, you know, and we all know viruses have tons of self synergy. Like, you usually are playing more than one virus if you're playing viruses. So Jin is a card that I think was probably always on the cusp of being quite good, but never quite got there for whatever reason.
Yeah,
maybe due to slots or whatever.
Again, I feel like noise held it back, right? Because there was not that virus that was created because of the you know, the world we lived in. Hollis, anything on Jin, or are you good?
I'm good, man.
Yeah. Medium. Do you want to take
this card?
What's that?
Forget this card. I hate it. Hate medium.
Yeah, I the most crippling
hate
games
medium.
I usually lost to like hardcore medium digs that I couldn't shake, you know.
Okay, story time. When I was learning how to play Netrunner, when I was first getting pretty decent, I was like, yeah, I get it. I can hack some servers, all right? Like, I can make efficient R&D runs. I know how much it costs to get it in there, you know, like getting to that, like, when you're first, like, getting the flow of the game, right? A guy named Weston Odom came over to my house, and we barely know each other. We've played at G&K, like, in 2 G&Ks. Now we're like best friends, right? So like, dude was like over a year ago, and comes over, and I have my sick RP deck. I got my Sundews, I got my mental health clinics, you know, like Xanadu. I got this sweet deck, and he sits down with Abrams Double Fork.
Yep.
I lost like 9 games in a row to medium, like 9 games in a row. All my ice on R&D parasited, C4, C5, trash that, C7, good game.
Yep.
Every single game, right? And since then, I have been like triggered whenever I play against medium because it's so good at ending the game.
Yeah.
It's so good. If you're behind, pray to God they don't have medium. If you're not ahead, get on your knees because medium's coming and he's going to close the game out. Yeah. That's just like what it does, you know?
Did you ever have any of those games where you just don't have the most optimal start? You know, your ice is low and you decide to, like, you know, I'm going to ice HQ instead of R&D, and then their first turn, because you've left R&D open, they're like, I'm going to install medium and just start making runs on you. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know, 4-5-0. You know, off like their first turn, and you're like, how the F did this happen? You know?
Yep. Yep.
It sucks. Damn, I mean, yeah. I mean, you're right. It's absolutely amazing at closing the game like that. Like, it's pretty insane. And I feel like, and maybe, I don't know if we'll discuss this, if we've already talked about this with the other cards that are out, but I feel like the combination of all of the cards pretty much that are out are the reason why some of these cards remained at their power level for so long. I mean, when you can destroy ice with Parasite, and it comes in with additional virus counters from Grimoire, and you're drawing cards super efficiently with Wildside, and the ice that they do have, you're breaking so efficiently that the code gates cost nothing. Like when you have all those things combined, and you have Deja Vu to just recur Parasites, a card like Medium just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And on top of that, it's splashable effectively in any faction, right? You can throw it in Shaper, even with the tools they have. You can throw it in Shaper, you can throw it in Criminal, and it can just help close out the game when you have that advantage, when you're already ahead. It's insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
It's insane.
I think you have to look at stuff that is coming, and you can clearly see why. Like again, Friday chip, right? Like let me just explain this. So Friday chip, whenever you trash a corp card, you may place one virus counter on Friday chip. When your turn begins, you may move one hosted virus counter to a virus program. Like just think how that would be feeding Medium. Like it'd be nuts, right?
Jeez.
And plus the way like that you can get additional virus counters, I mean, if a virus counter goes on this card on Friday chip and you just surge it, well then, now you have a couple chips to move, and you're just going to push them all over to Medium, and bada bing, bada boom, game over. So yeah, Medium again had to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss it.
It's too good at what it does. I mean, when you compare it to all the other multi-axis in the game, it's just too good.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's by far the best.
We've already talked about Parasite. Is there anything else to say about Parasite?
Rip. Yeah. Good riddance.
We've talked about Worm. We talked about Yogg and Wildside. So those are the outs. Not bad. Not bad. I mean, there is nothing there that we're really like, why the F did they, cut this? So, good on them.
Yeah. It's a solid list, I think.
Yeah.
It's just, either stuff that was really bad or stuff that was way too good or stuff that doesn't fit with Raina or whatever.
This would have been a very, very interesting, if this core set were to reboot the game, right, like start from scratch, this would be a very different, very interesting Anarch world that we lived in. It wouldn't be nothing like what we've seen previous. So that's really cool that they've kind of changed the whole base of Anarch. Looking at what's in, what's really, really, really interesting to me from a thematic perspective is the inclusion of Raina and leaving all her pieces somewhere else. I don't know, like I actually got it here. If anyone has read the Monster Slayer book, you know how thematic Deep Red and her console or her programs, the Kessia pieces, are with her.
Dude, it's cool. Yeah, it's so cool.
And when you look at what was included, none of that was brought in. So I'm like, I hope to God, because of how, like, I know they kind of died a hard death, but I thought they were so cool, like designed. Like some of them were used. Night was, Night saw its time in the light, even singularly, things like that. But I mean, it makes no sense to include. Even from like hey, we have something coming, it makes no sense to include Deep Red because it's synergized just with the Kessia programs, and if you're not going to include them in, then you can't have Deep Red. So she got Spinal Modem instead. But I'm really sad to see that whole suite is leaving. I know Hollis and I have talked a little bit about it, and he hopes they kind of just get redesigned and re-released some way down the line,
right?
Because he thought that there was some things they could have done differently and learned from. But I don't
even know if this is the right place to put it, but I kind of feel like the combination of the rotation plus the introduction of the revised core set sort of gives them another design space, right? Like they actually finally can say to themselves, "Hey, this card didn't quite do what we wanted it to do. Let's try for 2.0 or whatever." Like they can do whatever they want. But I like that. I like knowing that, like, if the Kaisa programs were something that's supposed to be for Raina, and we know they're rotating out, they do have the chance. They have a chance to say, let's make a new pawn, a new rook, a new bishop, and so on and so forth, and introduce these back into the game. Let's make a new deep red, or they don't have to. They could just like have her just as the core ID, and then instead have cards that help enhance the core ID as opposed to just this other concept that wasn't necessarily related. Like, I mean, it gives them just another toolkit.
Yeah, I think Raina has the advantage of having an ID that does not require support.
Right.
I think that's like kind of the piece here that makes the Raina include make more sense. Thematically, I think it's kind of dumb. Like, I agree. That you don't get these, like, really, like, the things that came with Raina, the things that really made you feel like this was a complete package. But at the same time, the ID Raina was rarely played with the chess pieces. You played Siphon with Raina. Yep. You played Headlock, right? So, in that sense, thematically it doesn't make sense, but mechanically it kind of does. Like, mechanically, Raina is always more of a, like, econ squeeze ID was kind of what she was going for. I don't think that's super well represented in the cards here, but I do think Raina has a lot of advantages in the core set experience insofar as she's very straightforward. It's not complicated to use Raina's ability. You just have to make a run.
True.
And I think that's really good for new players, that you have an ID that's super simple to use. And I also think it's cool that she actually encourages you to run, which is something that new players, like, don't do.
Yeah.
Like, new players, like, really struggle, like, making runs. Like, they're always scared, right? How many new players have you played that, like, won't run until they have all 3 breakers installed, right?
Yep.
So it's like, and Raina is like, no, you should face check some stuff. Like, you should get in there, right? So I think, like, as an ID for the core set, she's a really good fit. Putting the thematic element aside, I agree that I really miss the chess pieces, and I kind of wish there was some way that could have been a part of this. But she is really simple and elegant, and just kind of works for this kind of thing.
I really hope we see a revive of her. I always liked what she did with the game. I thought her ability was just simple and sweet. Playing with that economy, manipulation, and plus she had a link, so I mean, that's the unsung hero there too. Really cool to see her added, and I hope that she becomes a forerunner in the future. I hope there's a reason why she was moved to core set, because she becomes like the new dominant figure. I mean, hey, let's be honest. Out of the choices, I'm sure we've all, we're happy that it was Raina out of the 2 IDs that could have been.
Please not Wizard. Just please not Wizard. He got that missile. It's done.
Going down the list here, we have 2 events. We have Retrieval Run and Singularity, fellas. Interesting? Yes or no?
I like Singularity in this context. I don't think it's a card that's going to see more play because it's here or because it's, whatever. But it is a common ill of newer players that they go like, oh, I hit a snare, there was nothing I could have done. You hear that with new players. Like, there's nothing I could have done to not get snared. It was completely random, right? It could have been anything in that server. And I kind of like stuff like Singularity, because it's, like, bad and inefficient, but at least you can say, like, well, there's Singularity. Like, you could have done something. You could have played Singularity, right? So I like that it's here. Like, I think it adds texture. I don't think anyone's going to play it any more now than they ever did I don't think the rotation makes Singularity a better card. It's still pretty bad. Just playing well is better than putting Singularity in your deck. But it's cool that it's here. I think it's a kind of design that I think is a nice stepping stone for people who are improving at the game.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say about Singularity.
And I'll just put the bow on top of that. I'll add on and looking at Singularity in the bubble of I'm only going to play core. I think it's a great teaching card to, it's something that needs to be there. It's a way in this game box that you're able to access cards and wipe them out, right, without taking the effects. So I feel it needs to be there from a core set perspective. Hollis, anything to add on those two or on Singularity? And you can start retrieval run thoughts.
No, I totally agree with the points. I think that Singularity is a card that needs to exist because it provides this sort of answer in case. It's the in case thing, right? We can't deal with this. Well, you could if it's a problem for you. You probably don't need to, but I like that. Sometimes, most times, I don't know. And as far as so the very next card, Retrieval Run. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the 3-cost event out of Anarch that says make a run on archives successful instead of accessing cards. You may choose a program or as an icebreaker.
Program, I believe.
Program in your heap and install it, ignoring the install cost. Okay. So here's the thing. Generally, when I had seen this card ever get played, it was usually out of denial decks. Right? Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. It was usually decks that wanted to do denial. So you would basically, they would protect R&D HQ first really, really early, and you would go, okay, well, I'll overdraw, just put the Fem in the trash, and attack both fronts. So, okay, here we go. I hit the archives, retrieval run, Fem is on HQ. All right, siphon, and then we got us the game, boys. That was the that was generally the plan I saw with using retrieval run. And a few Anarch decks would occasionally use it if they were using Keyhole and stuff like that, right? Because they want to make sure that the decks were super aggro. They were running Max. And it would just be an extra toolkit in their deck to make sure, hey, anything critical that I'm losing, I can get back.
Yeah.
I like Max a lot. Yeah. I do.
Yeah, I agree. I do. I think in Max, that's where it really shined because any fixies you ran at all at the time, you just straight up could pull back. Oh, and Fem, you should have pulled back. I feel like now, though, this is... it's interesting because we've lost now another recursion card out of Anarch, right? We've lost Deja Vu. Oh, sorry, no, this is remaining. Thank goodness. So this is remaining. Whoo! So what I dig about this is that it's nice having just similarly to Singularity is us having this extra little piece in this toolkit to go, okay, hey, I flexed in Fem. I flexed in Fem. I still have a few other cards at my disposal that I don't want to get trashed. Max isn't going anywhere. So having a card that basically allows you to pull stuff back out of your archives when Max is doing her thing is fantastic. It's got to stay there, because even though you have those fixies, or not fixies, but the oh goodness, the conspiracy breakers, I think is what they called. Even though you have the conspiracy breakers, the fact remains is things happen, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you've made a good call, and your opponent has cards that make it clear that you did not make a good call. And I would rather cheat my Fem than play it for 9 pretty much any day of the week. Pretty much.
Hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
I really like this card. I'm glad that it's sticking around. I've used this. So what I like about this card is that I find Netrunner. I love the games where a turning point happens that is totally from left field, and I think some of those times is when you see somebody's playing old school. I loved Big Rig playing these expensive breakers and stuff like that, and if you have something in the trash like a Fem or as dominant as that, even you know, creeping up, you know, to something like Morningstar or whatnots, right? Like, just being able to all of a sudden out of faction, you know, if you've splashed a, you know, a Femin, or if you're using Criminal, and you just run archives and you're able to, you know, bring something back, and it just TSN Turning Points this whole, I guess, you know, only Canada is going to get that TSN Turning Point reference, but you're just going to be able to, you know, turn the game, right? And Retrieval Run is a card that can really turn the tides, man, and to make a game of it. It can finish something off. It can keep a corporation on their toes. And I think that's what I really love about this game, is that surprise elements that, you know, when played properly. I'm glad that it's there.
Agreed.
It's a great teaching card in core.
Nothing is ever truly lost.
Yeah.
No, like, well, but it is though. Arc lockdown.
Sometimes.
Got him.
Arc lockdown. Scorpios. Defense systems.
Yeah.
Hard lessons for a new age.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh.
Spinal Modem, fellas, is the one piece of hardware that is joined in here. So you have cyber feeders and spinal modems.
Wow. I don't even.
Like,
do you have a comment, Holland?
I mean, it's a console.
But it is a console. It gives you an MU and 2 recurring credits, and you can use those credits to break ice. However,
so that's
because there's a modem. That's fine.
Fine. That is, you know,
that's
hey,
fine.
Hallelujah. Hey, a couple years ago when this card came out, you know, okay, I can see, you know, roll the dice, take the risks, don't, you know, don't.
So it's very thematic, guys.
Trace.
It's very thematic because you have a modem attached to your spine. Yeah. So imagine for a second you're permanently jacked in because this modem is like, you know, it's like ingrained in your body. It's like a biomod. They trace you, you're screwed. That's your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yep.
Does it make sense in the core set? Maybe. Like, the card design's pretty cool. Like, I think it's kind of hard to argue with that. Like, it makes sense. But, like, why is this here? You know, like, I guess, like, given the options, maybe that's the only option. But I'd rather they reprinted something like Turntable, right?
Right.
Like something like, even though it's from a different cycle, I would have rather seen like Turntable here.
Yeah.
Which is like, kind of like, it's both cards are very Anarch, but Spinal Modem I just think's a little weird. You know.
I find Spinal Modem. Interesting because if you look at it, it was kept, and you took out Grimoire, and you didn't really have much else to work with, and you want to throw Spinal Modem in here. Okay, if I'm just playing you and me with this core set, with this set of cards, okay, let's do it. Maybe, like, I haven't really gone through and really taken a hard look at how much trace is in this.
There's some,
right, but not enough that it's dominant. Right, like you think about playing this in a competitive world and saying that this was kept, and oh my god, like there's so much tracing and shit that's all over the place. Like,
you're gonna get brained.
Yeah,
you cannot install
right?
this against CTM.
So,
cannot install it.
Yeah, so this was, I think this was more of a, you know, hey, default. So Spinal Modem won by default here. Grimoire had to go, and Spinal Modem was obviously the only thing that can get flipped in.
I think you're right.
Like, do you ever run this over something like Obelisk?
No, the stuff that is right now in the current, from what we've seen, the current Anarch hardware is good later in the cycle.
Yeah.
All right. That's Spinal Modem, everybody.
That is Spinal Modem. The next, we have a good mitt full of programs. Darwin, Force of Nature, Imp, Hemorrhage, and Morningstar. I am so glad that Morningstar is kept around. I love
Morningstar.
Morningstar.
Retrieval run synergy. It's in the box.
I know,
There you go.
Man, I know. I can't tell you. Morningstar was my boy back in the day. Other than that, interesting picks. Putting Darwin in, Force of Nature. What?
I think Darwin's a good include. It kind of replaces Worm for the AI, right?
Yeah.
You know, and like Darwin's a lot more interesting than Worm, at least, right?
Yes.
It's still not great, but it kind of feels like what an AI should be, which is like flexible but inefficient.
Darwin is also a lot easier for a new player to understand what is going on. And hey, look, this is AI, right?
This is what AI means. Yep. Yeah. It's cool. I like Darwin.
And
also, Swordsman's in the set, and Swordsman's cutting a Darwin in the promo art connections.
What?
Yeah, if you look at the promo art for Swordsman, he's cutting a whale in half. It's Darwin.
Oh boy, hold on. What?
Yeah, it's in the GNK promo. Mind blown.
Hollis is.
Ooh, we are deep down the rabbit hole, boys. Pun intended. Wow. Also, I wanted to add the reason why I like the Darwin's still here is because I think he's cute. Like,
he's a cutie.
The internet can fight me, but I mean, that's a Cube Irish program.
I'd get a Darwin playmat. It's adorable.
There you go. Like
not like anyone can make that out, but there you go.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a whale. You guys see it. You guys saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the tail is on the
end.
The tail
getting destroyed.
There's the tail right there.
Yeah. That's a Darwin getting wrecked. Because Swordsman eats Darwins.
Yeah, you're right. Swordsman eats Darwins.
I always keep a swordsman handy to put into any deck. Just like that.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Darwin's cool. We like it. Yeah.
Force of Nature, though, I mean, I guess you got to put something in there to...
It's kind of... So, to be clear about Force of Nature, I just want to throw this out there. It's just Yogg, but it breaks for a credit. You guys know that, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly Yogg, but it breaks for a credit instead of 0.
Okay, I'm gonna be real with you. I don't think I've ever even looked at Force of Nature because you remember when it came out, we had to compare it to Yogg, and so it was like, I would never ever play this card. Let's take a look at it so I know exactly what this card does.
Oops, sorry guys.
You're fine. Yogg in every way, except it has lower strength. It breaks for a credit, and it gets boosted.
So, you know what? So, Force of Nature is included here in the core set because it has to teach those new players, again, the lesson that hey, there's strengths in every faction, and code gate breaking is not supposed to be good in Anarch. So, this is what you get. Shaper is supposed to be the best code gate breakers, and everyone else is supposed to deal. So... This is where you enforce deck building, where you're like, do I include Force of Nature in my deck and take a hit on code gates so I can put other stuff in, or do I, pull in a code gate breaker from Shaper and...
Oh, I'm dumb. Force of Nature is 2 to break. I thought it was 1 to break. This card's terrible.
Oh.
Go on with your story.
It's so bad.
I was like, this is just like Yogg. It's kind of like a balanced Yogg, but it's not. It's awful, and it should go away. But there it is.
It should go into a revised core.
Nice.
So yeah, I guess it should go into a revised core. And as an aside, I really don't like the breaker color pie aspect of Netrunner because like every faction has to break all the ice. It's like it's kind of like the Wayland is the money faction. Like that doesn't make any sense. Every faction needs money, right? We can't have a money faction because then no one else can play the game. So it's like I kind of never liked that. I mean, it's here, it's in the core set. It's like it's what we got, but I've never loved that aspect of it because it's like it just basically the Force of Nature here is a reminder that when you play Anarch, you have to import Gordian Blade.
Yeah,
which is kind of sad, but whatever. There it is.
Yeah, in the chat, and the people are gonna cut you a break on the mix up because you just blew their mind with swordsman cutting whales. So you're
Cool.
one out, one in.
Get used to that. It's a mix with me. I'll get one right and one wrong.
Don't worry, they're used to it with Hollis, except his speeches are like 25 minutes, and he's like, "Oh, I was wrong."
Yeah, pretty much. Welcome to the internet. We made it.
Hollis,
Cool.
you got anything on Darwin, Force of Nature, or do you want to lead with Imp?
I got nothing on those two. I mean, we've
And tell us why Imp should be included here.
Man, okay, so have you heard of assets? Let me explain what they do.
They ruin
they can ruin Netrunner. So in general, I think it's a good idea to retain cards that are going to help against like emerging deck archetypes that are like really, really popular, or I guess emerging deck archetypes that can be negative play experiences. Everybody's familiar with like Moons. But before Moons, right, there was IG, and before that there was CTM, and before that there was NEH. Like basically we've had so many deck archetypes that relied on asset spam. Now I'm not saying that a single imp or what have you is going to be fast and efficient enough, because those decks can simply run cards like Cyberdeck's Virus Suite and stuff like that. But the fact remains, it's a tool. It's an additional tool to help against asset spam decks. And in addition to that, it's not just asset spam, right? Imp can trash any card that's accessed. So it's nice that we sort of get that. John, you mentioned earlier, like one thing you liked about the interaction with noise, of course, was the fact that there's not really another runner that gets that sweet ability to say, like you said, that I run R&D. Is that a hedge fund? You're really close to being able to use the next turn with the gain hedge. I think I need to get rid of it. Imp retains that power, and it's not just on an ID. You can slap the imp down at that moment in time, and you can go, okay, let me run this HQ or R&D. You know what? I think it's worth using this imp counter here. Get rid of it. And I like that. I like that. That's a great option to have. I mean, it would be really sad if this card just wasn't even in the game anymore, because I don't think Anarch really has any great tools for picking and choosing certain cards to get rid of by the corp. I think that's part of their pie, right? Like that's the thing they do.
Yeah, I love Imp. This card's super cool. The thing I love about Imp is I feel like it's right in the perfect sweet spot for viruses, where it's usually not quite worth it to purge.
Right.
As the corp, right? It's in that sweet spot where you can play an Imp with 2 counters, and it's really ambiguous if they purge it or not.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the best place for these kinds of cards that they lose their counters when they're purged or whatever. Because it's like, you can kind of count on it then. You can count on it being like value. 2 credits, the corp skips their turn, pretty good value. Sell it to Aesop, then I get $3 more. Good stuff by me, right?
Yeah.
But it might be worth it for the corp to purge an imp, because they're trying to protect something. Like in HQ, they have a hard-hitting news, and they can't let you trash it, right? And especially now that there's no Jackson, if you imp like a hard-hitting news, it's a pain in the ass to get that thing back.
Yes.
It's going to take a while, right? So you get like archive memories to like get it. Like, I don't know. It's sort of like Imp is cool. It's a lot cooler in the post-rotation environment because it's not trivial to get cards back that are trashed. Unlike in modern Netrunner with Friends in High Places and Jackson, trashing a card is it's a trivial matter for the corp to get it back.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see when, like it said that, I know we keep going back to it, like the broken record it is now, but the Friday chip, I mean, so Imp can get recharged up.
Yep, yeah. Friday chip with Imp, yeah, super cool. I'm excited. I think it'll be a cool part of whatever virus suites come up.
I mean, as a pinnacle, of the virus, that we've seen, it'd be sad to see it go. I mean,
yeah, agreed. It's a very well-balanced card. It's like a well-intentioned card, right? Like it's no one's ever complained about him.
No.
But we've all enjoyed playing it, I'm sure.
Hemorrhage, on the other hand.
What do you think of Hemorrhage?
It's one of the cards that when I'm making some interesting decks and you know, I've seen a buddy of mine, David Weeks. He reaches for Hemorrhage as well, and it's just it's good, but it's
yeah.
The value you can get out of it can differ from game to game. So sometimes you can put it down and you might not see the return, but some games it could win.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting.
It's not super strong or anything, but it's cool. Like, it's a pretty cool card. Like, we were talking about something like Hive Mind Progenitor, like Virus Breeding Ground. You can kind of like load it up and like make them trash a bunch of stuff in HQ. It's cool. It's like a little bit combo-y, you know. It's a little bit feast or famine, but it's a fun card. I think it's neat. I don't think it's degenerate. You know, it's just like, it's fun. It's a fun card. I'm happy to see it in the core set.
It makes you work for that trash aspect, right? Like, you need the 2 counters plus a click. So, I mean, it can tempo hit you, but if you can charge it up,
yeah,
all the power to you.
And someone made a good point here in the chat, and it's difficult for me to. I have not adjusted to this thinking at all yet, but cards that trash cards out of the corpse hand or deck, it gets so much more challenging in a world without Jackson. Now, yeah. I personally think we're going to see, you know, some version of a Jackson-like card that can be used maybe at instant speed. I don't know. But I just, knowing that it's a little harder, at least in the present moment, knowing what we know about the cards, to put things back in the deck or get the cards back that are trash. Any card that says, like, you know, trash a random card out of your hand is like, oh my god, like, that could be so dangerous.
I don't think Hemorrhage is random.
It's not random?
No, it's like, I believe you choose. It doesn't say random. But the important thing is that when you use Hemorrhage, it's like, how many cards do you have? And they're like 3, and you're like, click, click, click.
Yeah.
You know, like, get them all. Yep. That's kind of how you use the card, but...
Yeah. It can be brutal.
Yep.
Brutal.
Definitely. Scary stuff.
So that's that. Obviously, Morningstar, like we said, is saved. Thank Genius.
Yep.
Really cool. I can't say enough cool things about Morningstar. I mean, back in the day, this thing, it was everything I loved. Again, it was I'm gonna put this in my deck and totally meta call, because it was a fixed strength 5 breaker. And I mean, I think at the time when it was coming around, I think there was like maybe, you know, 1 or 2 ice that somebody could have in there that would really give Morningstar the FU. So if you rolled the dice and nobody had those big, you know, crazy barriers in their decks, then you know, you were flying high. But
yeah, that's true.
You know, if you weren't
true that,
then it did. So I think it's cool. I really think it's a cool card. I hope it was saved for a reason. I hope that it can get a resurgence. Morningstar, miss you, friend. Do you guys have any love that you want to pour onto this one? Do you want
Morningstar is cool.
Want to get on the Morningstar bandwagon now before it blows up huge?
Say we liked it before it was cool. Is that what you want us to do?
When Chiashi rotates, I'll play some Morningstar. But no, Morningstar is really cool. I'm happy about it. It's synergy with Retrieval Run. It's exciting. Synergy with Data Sucker. Come on, what's not to like? It's cool as hell.
Liberated accounts, guys. Liberated was saved.
Good.
Yeah. Liberated. Need that money. Give me the money. Liberated's not even like a good card. It's like a card you have to play. You know, it's like that's why I like it in the core set. It's like you're never like, yes, and now I get to put liberated accounts in my deck. It's just sort of like you're like, all right, cool, yeah, let's get that in there. You know, make some money. Click it. It's really inefficient. It's like you gotta click it. Like you gotta go like any Anarch player in the world knows the feeling. Where like, I guess I'll keep it. Credit, install, liberated, click it, go.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just sort of like, it's not a bad play. Like, no one would laugh at you for doing that. But, like, it doesn't feel good. You know, it's just kind of what you got to do.
Yeah, And the only reason that you're going to put it down and click it twice is because when they got rid of dice, you don't want to put actually 16 credits on that thing, right?
Jeez.
You're like, listen,
Be
I
a
don't
bad
want to count
boy
out
and use
16.
dice anyway.
I don't want to count out 16 credits here, so I'm just going to actually just install it and use this twice.
Yep. Yep.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that's horrible. I would never want to put credits on it ever.
Unless you're stalling for time, right? Like it's right at the end and you're going for that time to win or something, and you're like, install liberated accounts. Let me just 1, 2.
I'm dead. I'm so dead. Don't do no, please. I'm so dead. Ridiculous.
It takes 2 minutes to load it up.
Just like, sorry, they don't allow dice anymore. Next down was Scrubber. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for saving Scrubber. I can still include him in my Atom lists. Spoiler alert, tune in next week where we talk about Criminal and I tear a strip into the people that pulled E3 from the game. But I digress. I digress right now.
You're an Atom player, right?
Yeah.
There you go. I nailed it. If anybody ever complains about E3 being gone, I'm like, you're an Atom player.
Yeah. That's why I'm still happy with Scrubber. It still gives me some versatility there.
Yeah, you gotta love Scrubber, right? It's a very fair card. The first time you use it, it breaks even. Like, you know, it's good. Like, if you've ever been playing against an asset spam deck and you have like 3 Scrubbers and like an employee strike and you're opening hand, you're just like, whoa. You like put down all your Scrubbers, right? And then the other guy's like, oh, so lucky you got all your Scrubbers, and you're just like, get out of here, IG player. Get out of here. Take that. You know, like, I love Scrubber. Can't complain.
Yeah, it does everything that's needed to do. First, you know, it's a connection. Second, it's a resource, so it's sitting in that row at the bottom there. It's so cheap to play, and it's 1 influence, so very, very flexible to pass this around.
Mm-hmm. Yep, love it.
And I think FFG in general wants to keep it in core because they understand if they, well, you know, I'll say it, but if they fuck up and they can't do much about assets, like
it's just Scrubber.
At the very least, every faction has it available to them to import Scrubber. So it's sort of like a CYA concept. It's like, look, worst case scenario, if people got to run 2-3x Scrubber in all decks, at least it's 1 influence. Like, I don't know. Yep. Whatever. Yep. I'll take it.
Cool. Yeah, I dig it.
Last on the list, guys, is Xanadu. Obviously, going to see some big synergy there with the Red Queen herself.
I think Xanadu is pretty underplayed for how good it is. It's better than you'd think. If you ever had Xanadu installed against you, you know. It's like, oh, this is annoying. I'm like, pop-up window costs 1, and now my whatever costs 2, and it's like, it adds up, you know? Mm-hmm. It's kind of a spooky card.
I agree. Yeah.
Thankfully, it's unique.
So, not really a long story, just a brief one of my experience with Xanadu, because this always makes me so mad. There was a period in time where I was cube drafting a lot with local players, and Xanadu is a card in cube draft. They want to say it's like 2. It was like at the time it was 2x Xanadu in cube draft, and we had a player who would almost always auto draft it. Like if they saw it, barring great cards like still Parasite and Corroder and stuff like that, they would take Xanadu, and I would always like pan Xanadu as a card to draft, but every time I was confident they won because of Xanadu. Like it's absurd how expensive and how difficult it is to play as Corp, and how you have to change your math. You're like, wait a minute, hold on, this costs okay, I don't know if I really want to res this then. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing. Like you said, when you start piling on Raina's ability and you have Xanadu, at some point you're like, okay, I don't know. Yeah. Like this is going to cost me 2 extra. That's going to mess up how I want to whether I install advance next turn or install this piece of ice with an install call. It's just insane. Yeah, it starts to add up, man. It really starts to add up.
It's like the famous words of the Xanadu player, right? Like every time you it's one of those things you forget about. You're like, I'm going to res this ice here, and they're just like, oh, +1. And you're like, shit.
Oh yeah.
Couple turns pass, they make a run. You're like, I'm gonna res this ice, and they're like, oh, +1. You're just like, you're like, pretend you didn't see that because you've already flipped it over. Can't afford that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, one thing I think that's cool about Xanadu is when the next time you play against Xanadu and you res like an Ichi 1.0 for 6 credits, ask yourself, would I have played Ichi 1.0 in my deck if it cost 6 credits?
Yeah,
right?
And
it's like you start to think about it, and like vanilla, yeah, I'll res it for $1, 100%, every time. I'd put vanilla in my deck if it cost a credit, all of them. So, but it's a cool card because it lets you see kind of where the breaking points are for your cards. Because it's like, would I res a Fairchild 3.0 for 7? 100%. Give me that Fairchild, right? So, but yeah, you start to see, like, it's weird, right? When it's like, when it's an Eli 1.0 for 4 credits, it's okay. It's not the all-star of your rares anymore. It's just okay, right?
Yep.
So I think that's a cool part about Xanadu is it makes you think about the game in a different, slightly different perspective, in a little bit of a different world, right? And I think it's cool when cards have that impact on the game.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, especially like we said, when it's if that's the first piece of ice and it's being incorporated with Raina, just garbage to play against. Man, that's the Anarch breakdown. So so far it seems like everybody thumbs up for that. Like we're all on board for those changes. Nothing too crazy. It seems like everything needed to happen, and we can rationally justify everything.
Yep. Every good Anarch card is dead. Rip Anarch. I think of all the redos in the course that I'm most excited about Anarch because I don't know what an Anarch deck looks like now.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. That's really exciting.
Yep.
Because for a while, Anarch was this really cut and dry thing. It's like get your 3 Parasites, 2 Yogs, 2 Corroder, 2 Mimic, 2 Data Sucker, 3 Wildside, 2 Adjusted Chronotype. Like the deck list kind of built itself.
Yeah. And at the end, you're like, oh, I've got 2 spots left. You're like, oh, let me just see what's in the new pack. Oh, I'll try this card out. Oh shit, this deck still dominates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy that I don't know. I can't just put a deck together now. We have to like as a community kind of think about what this all means. And I think that's really neat.
Yep. I agree. That is sort of the exciting part to me, looking at this entire thing, rotation and core 2. Also, I think I saw abbreviated today in Netrunner Dorks as C2R. But like that's the exciting aspect to me is that, like you said, John, we don't know how some of these deck archetypes are going to be built. What does an Anarch deck now with these changes look like? If there is a dominant archetype to emerge, how the hell, what is it built out of? Knowing so many pieces are gone, does Anarch now completely change gears? Because as far as I was aware, every Anarch deck I had seen recently, regardless of the most wanted list or not, was still including Parasites. Whether it was 2 or whether it was 3, they were still including Parasites. Many of them, or some of them, were still including Grimoire, but a lot of them had moved to Obelisk. A lot of them moved to Maul, just based on what they were doing. I mean, so this seems so exciting. I know dominant decks are going to emerge. Of course, it's a card game. But I really want to see what the community comes up with. And in that meantime, in the interim, until we get to that point, what are people going to experiment with? I want to see that also.
Here's my hard prediction.
I'm ready.
Hard prediction. David Kim is the new Reg Anarch.
David Kim?
Kim.
The vanilla?
The vanilla guy. That is my
vanilla
prediction.
guy.
All right.
I like him.
Just make it a wild prediction because I think it's fun to do that. But I think that who's going to replace Wizard, right, as your put breakers and money in an Anarch deck guy? I think it's David Kim.
Edward?
Sorry, yeah. Edward Kim. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree with this.
Eddie. Old Eddie Kim.
Yeah. I can see him being, It's the Link, man. You got to have Link. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just think like of all the abilities, like I look at all of it, I look at all of it and I just think, wow, as a very sexy, shirtless Asian man, I need that in my life. And I think that's basically the meta answer to what's going to ail us.
All right. No, he is a sexy Asian man. Yeah. we can agree on this.
I think we haven't seen Alice flushed out fully yet. I think she's got hidden potential. I like what David Weeks, who I think he was like top 16 or something like that. What did he get at Gen Con? Was running a really spicy Alice deck. She's the new Miller. Mill time.
Indeed.
And the pieces should still be there for you to flush it out. I mean, hey, Hemorrhage is in core. Do it up.
It's true.
Guys, this is it's been fun. It's been great. I think we'll put the wraps on this now. Next week we'll dive into the blue. The deep blue yonder of Criminal. Hollis will tell you why he loves Crash Space being saved.
I'm sorry, what? Hello?
Hey, save
what? Hello?
I'm just gonna lament Lemuria Code Cracker. You're gonna miss that one.
Wow. I mean, it's fine. Lawyer up, it's fine.
No.
Lawyer him up.
So crazy.
Is
so crazy.
That your,
All right, we'll save it, right? Like, there's so many ridiculously bad criminal cards.
Yes.
Like less true with Shaper, less true with Anarch, other than like Worm. But there's a few in Criminal that are like, whoa, missed the mark.
Yeah, criminal. We obviously had the one or two powerhouses that everybody had issues with. Did I have issues with them? I don't know. We'll see next week. I'm not going to be able to forfeit an agenda for 9 credits anymore. That was my sad point.
Well, you got ShadowNet.
Ooh.
Forfeit an agenda for 9 credits when you use Sure Gamble.
Touche. But it's not the same.
Not the same, I agree. It's not as cool.
It's not as seedy. Guys, thanks very much. Let me know down below what you guys feel about the changes. Do you like seeing the chat? Is it too big? Is it too small? Do I need to extend it? What changes can I make there? Let us know your thoughts on the Anarch stuff. If you're not subscribing, make sure you do that so you don't miss these changes. Stuff like this. Hey, Wednesdays now, our Netrunner show. If you didn't subscribe, you wouldn't have got the alert. You guys have any other parting thoughts?
I'm just pumped.
Yeah.
Netrunner's about to get real good. That's how I feel.
It's a new dawn. The sun is rising.
Yeah. So
yeah.
If anyone out there who is like had a bunch of I know we all have friends who've kind of lapsed from the game, get them back in, because I don't know, I've been playing around with some of the decks and some of the ideas and like things that are different, and I think Netrunner is about to be better than it's ever been in terms of just the diversity and faction balance and the deck types and all that stuff. So I'm really excited.
Me too. Like I know there's some negative feedback. Oh, well, you know what? Hold on. Sorry. I'm gonna give this right now. I'll keep it brief. How much time do I have? Okay. Hey, the real talk for this evening. This is my real talk because we just started this. So the real talk of this evening.
Here we go.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Wait for.
Sorry. The real talk of this evening happened to deal with a Netrunner Dorks post that I saw. It's not the one some of you may be thinking. That's not the one I'm going to address. The one I want to address was there was a few actually, but it seems to be that there are still players out there that are somewhat disappointed with the announcement of Core 2. And the reason for that disappointment could be for a couple of reasons. One that I saw was that they felt like by doing the rotation and actually having a revised core set, some people felt like FFG kind of went back on their word. I have a difference of opinion on this, but okay. And there's another set of people that honestly feel like they just bought into the game, and as a result of the rotation and Core 2 happening, they are sort of losing the investment. Now, the way I kind of tried to combat this and argue with this a little bit is I said, hey, I know a lot of really good players that started the game sort of late in the game's life cycle. John, you're one of them, right? You were not playing the game in 2012, 2013. When did you start?
Midway through the second pack of the Mumbad cycle.
Yeah, so I mean, you actually started during probably one of the worst periods of the game, to be honest. We were getting a lot of really disappointing cards that really messed with the balance of the game. For those of you that are really, really worried because you're about your investment, let me just make it clear, okay? So I do sympathize with that to some small extent. The truth is though, the way I also look at it is that I bought into the game spending $15 per pack at 6 packs per cycle. So I basically, and so as a result, from that, I spent a lot of money, right? I spent a lot of money on packs. And for the revised core set 2.0, they're giving you the option to, instead of spending like the $180 that I paid on these packs, you get the option of spending basically $120 on these packs. So not only are you saving money comparatively, if you want to look at it that way, but also you don't have to buy the brand new core sets. You could just choose to buy the existing packs you didn't buy and try to piecemeal the cards that are going to remain that you don't have yet. So there's additional options in there that can help save you a little bit of cash if that's the concern, if the investment is a concern.
I promise you, go to a store after rotation hits, they will sell you those data packs for nothing.
Yeah, pretty much.
I promise you.
Right. Like it doesn't make sense for them to sell those data packs at full price, knowing they're basically encompassed by the core 2 and cards got rotated out. Pretty much a guarantee. So that's going to be an option for you. If you have to use an online retailer, while I want you to support your local game store, if that's your method of choice, use an online retail store and get it for cheap, because that's what I know a lot of people also do. But don't feel like you're being slighted. I would never go back on it and ask FFG to compensate me for the alt art cards I'm getting because I already own these cards. It doesn't really make sense. And I'm not really truthfully getting a value out of this because it's a LCG, not a CCG. I can't trade these the way I would with a CCG. There's no real true value here, for that. The only thing that really has value are like promo cards. And I mean, for most people, I feel like those are just simply marks of achievement of their accolades, right? So whether you are the kind of person that sells your promos or not, that's really, I feel like, going to be the only real way you're getting a true value out of the game, short of the time you spend playing it.
Anyone looking to buy 3 Elis?
Yes. Yes. And even if it wasn't for this financial concept I'm talking about, I would sincerely hope, if you are a fan of the game, your passion for having the game be healthy outweighs the possible financial bind you could be in by not buying cards that already exist in the game. I hope that you would prefer the game be healthy and successful than versus the amount of money you would have to spend on cards that, to be honest, you should have, but you don't, and you have to invest in. If the game is healthier, you're more likely to play it and have better experiences. And I hope that is the big factor for you. It's not just the fact that you're going to spend money on cards. I'm so sorry. But that's it. That's the real talk that I have for this evening for those things. I apologize, but yeah. Anyway,
thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate the numbers we had that were watching live. Thanks if you're catching this on the replays. Big, warm welcome back as we get back on track with more Netrunner content coming. So we have not deserted you guys. We'll catch you next week. See you then.
See you guys.